Welcome to the President's Forum podcast, where we talk innovation in higher education. Today, we're going to speak to some innovators at Davenport University in Michigan. At Davenport, which is a private, not-for-profit university, they've been remarkably innovative over the past several years, and as reported in Inside Higher Education, Davenport recently added a feature to help students identify how their experiences outside of college apply to their degree programs or their credential programs. This work allows students to earn credit for prior learning, which decreases the time to a credential and also, of course, decreases the cost. So we see this as a great pro-student innovation that the President's Forum will be very interested in. So today we'll be joined by Wayne Sneath, who's the Vice Provost of Academics, and Matthew Devereaux, who's the Assistant Vice Provost. They've been on the front lines of this program. Both have significant experience in assessment and experiential learning. Let's get to that interview. Wayne, Matthew, welcome to the President's Forum podcast. It's good to have you on.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the chance.
Be here. Thank you.
Hey, first things first, at the President's Forum, we consider ourselves a voice for working learners. Lots of our institutions, most of our institutions, serve working learners in a very, very deliberate way. And so that's one of the reasons we're excited to talk to you about one of the innovations at Davenport University that we think significantly benefits working learners. So to get started on that, tell us a little bit about Panther Path, your program to assess prior learning and provide credit for prior learning.
Yeah. Matt, you want to dive into Panther Path and I can back into prior learning a little bit later?
Absolutely. So Panther Path, what it is a brief 8-question online survey that asks students, both current and prospective, about their experiences that they could potentially get credit for that prior learning. Davenport recognizes that learning doesn't just take place between the four walls of a classroom.
Right.
And we want to be able to honor that, right? And so students answer these 8 questions. It takes, less than 3 minutes. And based on their answers, they receive an estimate of both time and money savings that they can achieve towards their degree. Now, I do want to give credit where credit is due, because the Panther Path tool was developed by CALE, which is the Council on Adult and Experiential Learning.
Okay.
And as a member, anybody can get access to this free tool, the free version. There is a paid version as well. But it is branded and marketed as a DU tool. And really for the institution, it serves as partially as a lead generation tool. Prospective students can click on it and learn a little bit about what their experiences might get them. And then gives kind of call to action, right? To reach out to their admissions rep, or if you're a current student, reach out to me or your advisor to really start the process of seeing what we can get for you.
So credit for prior learning is this remarkable idea to be able to recognize learning that's occurred outside of higher education. You don't have to, like you said, you don't have to be in a classroom to do that.
Right.
Why isn't this more widespread in higher education today?
Well, I think there are a few reasons. I mean, part of it is simply maybe a lack of knowledge or a push by students to ask for it, and actually sometimes for institutions to feel like there may be some concern about the rigor, the validity of some of these things, and also the potential impact on tuition revenue and things like that when we're concerned about tuition. So, I think those are a few things that we've heard ourselves and we've encountered in talking to other folks that are in the field. But, a lot of these approaches to the way we look at prior learning at DU are time tested. There are things like standardized testing, CLAP DSST, right? Review of military training, which we've been very intentional about that here. Non-collegiate corporate trainings, industry certifications, and then our own internal prior learning assessment process where we design unique assessments related to specific courses within the curriculum. But so, we've had some time to develop our process, and I think to help assuage some of the concerns. I think the data that we're starting to show now is really helping us make the case increasingly about some of the concerns that folks had. And I mean, Kale's work has been really solid on that too, and has helped, I think, the national conversation on understanding the value of this to adult learners. And we've been trying to model and kind of track a lot of the same metrics that they've been doing, and to show it at our institutional level.
Okay, so for our listeners, I just want to get basic with this. So you're an adult learner. You're a learner, period. Any learner. You come in and you say, "Hey, I want to take this assessment, and I want to see if there's anything that I can be awarded credit for and get closer to my credential, and by the way, save money on the way because I don't have as far to go for that credential." And I sit down and I'm going to take this, essentially in a survey. How many questions did you say
8.
we're looking at? 8 questions. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to answer these 8 questions. Give us an idea of what the questions are probing for. What are you asking these students about, and how do they earn that credit in their life experiences?
Great question. So the survey questions are asking things like, were you a military member, right?
Okay.
If you are, then we assume a certain amount of credits on just by averages, right? So if they answer yes to that, that's going to bump their estimate. We also ask them things like, have you completed an apprenticeship, right? If
Okay.
they've completed an apprenticeship, they've gotten lots of on-the-job training that is probably going to correspond to a course or two in their discipline. Other things is just their work history. How long have you been working? And Kale has a kind of an equation for however many years. They kind of map that to a certain amount of credits. And again, these are estimates. In order for a student to get an exact yes, you were approved for this, right? They have to be a student at DU and have a transcript review done and know what program they're selecting, so we can know, does your experience actually match
Right.
a course, or what courses you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the types of questions it's asking, and that's how it generates that estimate.
Wayne, you mentioned that you're seeing some data in on this already,
Mm-hmm.
and the impact on students is pretty significant. Can you tell us about that data?
Yeah, I might actually have Matt, because he's probably got the infographic up right in front of him, talk about some of the pieces. We've been looking at retention. We've been looking at time to graduation. We've been looking at generalized credit earning and cost savings, metrics like that. So, Matt, you want to highlight a couple of those?
Yeah. So I will. The data we have specifically run recently is for prior learning assessment, which is one of the 5 ways that students can receive credit for prior learning, which is the overarching term. And as Wayne said, this is more for work history, community activism, those types of things, to gain credit for that. So the program has been growing rapidly. In 2016, I believe we had 12 students throughout the year.
Okay.
This past year, we had 171.
Okay.
So growing exponentially. And then when it comes to outcomes, right, the retention rate for students who complete a prior learning assessment is about 93% compared to 78% for those who don't, the general population.
And you just attribute that to they're seeing rapid progress. They're saying, "Hey, all right, now I'm started, and I'm closer than I thought I was."
Yes, I think that is one aspect, is that it acts as a springboard. Students can do this at the beginning of their academic career, in the middle, or at the end. We're seeing a lot of current students take advantage of it right now at the end, right, to kind of push them towards graduation. But that doesn't preclude students from coming in at any time from doing this.
Okay.
Not only retention, but graduation rates, we see positive gains for students. So folks who complete a PLA at DU are graduating at a rate of 62% as opposed to 50% overall.
Yeah,
and this is, it's even more stark for students of color, graduating at a rate of 64%, as opposed to students of color who are not completing a PLA at 32%. Right?
Wow.
So, and adult students, Adult students, we see a graduation rate of 59% amongst PLA completers, as opposed to 43% of just regular adult learners. So these are some of the positive effects that we're seeing on students. And, it's gaining popularity. More students are learning about it. Faculty are completely on board. And so it's just been a great couple of years of growing this program.
How much credit is an average person finding that they are that they can be awarded in this process?
Very good question. So we actually just ran some averages on the 5 streams of credit for prior learning. So for prior learning assessment, which is what we were just kind of giving you some stats on, the average student is getting about 4 credits. Okay, so that's one course.
Right.
But the range is quite varied. I've had a student who received about, what was it, over 20 credits through PLA, and we're talking $20,000,
right,
or somewhere around there, in a significant amount of time. For other areas of credit for prior learning, military experience, the average at DU is about 17 credits.
Oh, that's great.
Yep. Certification, industry certifications is about the same, between 15 and 17. Those are the major ones. And then standardized testing, your CLEP, DSST, AP, they're about just around the 10 credit mark on average.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is the point here is when we're doing our best to figure out and assess prior learning, students are the beneficiaries because they have time and money that are given back to them essentially. And I mean, I just love the concept. Now, here's one of the things that I find very interesting. The business model in higher education usually runs counter to wanting to provide time and money back to the students, because for the institution, the longer students are in and the more money they're paying, the better the financial model is. So how do you reconcile those two competing interests, that of the student and that of the institution at Davenport? How do you think about that?
Actually, another data point that we tracked, and this was consistent as well with what Cale had done, is last year, 23-24, I think we were about over 500,000 in tuition savings, right, Matt, for students and using the PLA process. However, and that was, when we saw that kind of initially probably threw up a flag and said, wow, how is our administration and other folks going to feel about that? But what we found was very consistent with Cale's. The students who complete PLA go on to take more credits with the institution than those who don't. So our actual offset, when we looked at what was our total number, Matt, about 16 or 17 credits more?
Between 16 and 17 credits, which lines up almost completely with what Cale's research says, is that they will take those credits in residency. So yes, you're giving away $500,000. So in the last 2 years, we've given away $750,000 in tuition. But those students completing 16 to 17 credits more, right, had generated about $3 million. So the offset's about a positive of about $2 million.
Wow. So essentially it's good for the institution because you get this motivation and this persistence that you otherwise would not get for the student.
Right.
Correct. And the institution is making more money because those people who complete these are less of a risk of stopping out, dropping out, because they're more motivated. They see the light at the end of the tunnel. So it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, I would classify that as a true win-win. The student wins and the institution has upside in this as well. Yeah, that's fascinating. I love that you've found that it's proved to be a significant bonus for both students and the institution. That's fantastic.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what else should our innovators at the President's Forum know about this program and lessons learned from your implementation on this?
I think we were, I think, successful in rolling this out and branding it because we had some really good collaboration among internal constituents around this. So it wasn't just our office that was doing it. Our marketing and communications folks were involved. Our admissions and call center teams were involved. Advisors had input to it. Faculty have been developing more policies around prior learning and getting more familiar with it and promoting it to students, also serving as mentors for those who are doing PLAs. So you kind of have to think broadly, and you have to think across. You can't really niche it into one part of the institution if it's going to gain traction. And I think because we're a highly collaborative institution in general, I think folks grabbed onto this, and once they got past some of those initial concerns or raised eyebrows about some things and really saw the data that came through, that really helped to move it forward.
What do you see the future for this program at Davenport? How do you see this scaling as you move forward?
Well, what I would love to see is that Matt's doing such a great job, and he's also got about 3 other jobs or 4 other jobs to do, like a lot of us do. What I would love to see is be able to grow this enough that we had a fully dedicated person that their only work was prior learning assessment. And so that's where I would love to see us get to in terms of numbers, if we could justify that. But I think just continuing to offer the opportunities and to be innovative in thinking about the ways we not only develop programs that accelerate students to graduation, but continue to really scan the business environment, industry environment to make sure that we're not overlooking anything a student's bringing into the institution. Just to do a much better job of looking at them holistically and saying, you got to tell us everything you've done. We've got to look at you from that perspective, and there may be ways that we could really leverage more credit from what they've demonstrated in their professional life.
Well, this is really inspirational work that you're doing. It's great to actually hear the nuts and bolts of the implementation and how it's working for Davenport and how it's working for both the institution and the students. I want to end with the question of what has been, and even anecdotally, what has been the reaction of the students that are taking advantage of this work?
Matt, you want to field that one?
Yeah, this is the absolute best part of my job. Because, there are times dealing with any big institution where students can get frustrated because you can't find answers or you don't get the result you want. But when they come to me, typically they're getting positive news. Yes, you've been approved to engage in this process, or yes, you've gotten your credits. I can say it has been overwhelmingly positively received by students. And, some of the ones that stick out are these students that have been working on their degree at Davenport for decades. I mean, we're talking, I had one woman who actually got credit for a lot of courses, like probably 5 or 6. And she'd been working on her degree for quite some time, but had also been working in her career. And so we were able to get her over the hump and get credits for, like I said, 5 or 6 courses, which put her on track to graduate much faster and kind of realize something that she's been working on for so long. It's a lot of fun to be able to help with that.
Game changer for those working learners that can, increase time and save money. That's just fantastic. Well, we appreciate your time today, Wayne and Matt. Thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for the work that you're doing to advance, prior assessment and experiential learning. That is fantastic stuff. We'll keep an eye on Davenport and the work that you're doing, and as you have updates and more wisdom to share with your colleagues across higher ed, we'd love to have you back on.
Thanks so much, Wes. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.